within the collection, the regalia of the Perak Sultanate, they believe that they are the inheritance of the Keris Tameng Sari from Hang Tuah. Even though the legend of Hang Tuah itself mentioned that the Keris was lost somewhere in the sea or something like that anyway, but still there is a belief that this is been inherited by the Sultanate of Perak, because the Sultanate of Perak has a very direct link to the Sultanate.
But as profound a cultural object as the Keris is, the defining moment of its birth is still something of a mystery. There are many theories as to the origin of its design. The meander or zigzag patterns found in nature could have inspired the classic wavy shape of the Keris. Alternatively, our mixed sense of danger, fear and fascination when confronted with a snake is another possible source of inspiration. The ancient Javanese assigned the first creation of the Keris to their many legendary figures, such as Panji, the warrior king, or the ascetic Sunang Bonang, a Javanese mystic who was said to have drawn a Keris out of a snake's mouth. In a region of the world prone to eruptions, it is not surprising that one such story tells of a volcano giving birth to the first Keris. When one of the many volcanoes erupted, its lava flowed over and smelted iron ores were found in the surrounding mountainsides. It was from these raw materials that the first Keris were most likely forged. Whatever the truth, cloaked in the mystery of time, it is perhaps appropriate that the Keris's true origins remain unknown. Over the centuries, as the art of Keris making developed and formalised, the artisans that mastered the art became highly regarded in Malay society. And despite regular upheavals in the Malay world, Keris makers easily found new patrons. When the Majapahit Empire collapsed in the 15th century, many of the court artisans dispersed and regrouped under new patrons. Many moved to Sumatra and the island of Bali. Over time, descendants of these craftsmen came across to the Malay Peninsula. Sultan Baginda Omar invited many such craftsmen and women to Terengganu in northeast Malaysia in order to establish a manufacturing class. Some of them were ironsmiths, highly regarded for their skills and esoteric knowledge in making special, spiritually charged Keris blades. Many were woodcarvers, with skills in making Keris hilts, whose traditional forms had been handed down for generations. Today, Keris making is still being practiced by skilled craftsmen throughout the Indo-Malayan archipelago. Despite the rapid modernisation of the country in the latter half of last century, one can sometimes to this day still find the same cylindrical type of bellows, made from hollowed-out tree trunks, being used for Keris making in some parts of Malaysia. Haji Noor still makes the Keris hilt in the same way that his ancestors might have done centuries ago.
Saya kerja dia budak lagi. Saya kerja ukit tu. Ni. Tak tahu berapa tahun.
Haji Noor still makes the Keris hilt in the same way that his ancestors might have done centuries ago. An ingenious yet simple instrument for drilling is used to make a hole in the wood from which he will carve, often from memory. The hilt is often made from the aromatic cumanin wood, chosen for its relative softness and decorative grain. The final piece is then polished using memplas leaves, bringing out the fine texture in the wood. Kris blades are usually narrow and have a wide asymmetrical base. The blade is made from different iron ores and often contains nickel. A bladesmith, or empu, makes the blade in layers of different metal. While the forging of a Kris blade can take as little as a few days to perform, the forging of a special or auspicious Kris, such as those with toit, is a much more complex and lengthy undertaking. The making of such a blade can take up to 30 years or more to make. Pak Abu, a Kris maker who can trace his roots to the Majapahit ironsmiths, forges his blades between the time of the dawn prayer and the midday prayer. The iron is forged a set number of times and on days traditionally considered auspicious, such as the 14th day of the month that falls on a Tuesday. In Kris law, numbers are important, and as such, a Kris is made according to numerical systems. Made to measurements in keeping with its purpose, we can find out about a Kris through certain measuring systems. Not so long ago, the skills and knowledge of Kris making was in real danger of being lost. But today, there's been something of a revival, and a new generation of Kris artisans has emerged.
Saya Muhammad Syahid bin Mat Shah, dilahirkan di Selangor pada tahun 1988. Saya belajar Kris ni daripada datuk saya, di mana dia seorang pembuat Kris, dan dia mengajar saya cara bagaimana untuk menghasilkan ukiran-ukiran yang unik dan mempunyai maksud-maksud tertentu pada Kris itu. Dan Kris yang pertama saya buat adalah ini. Kris ini dibuat pada 6 tahun yang lepas. Kris ini dipanggil Kris Semenanjung dan mempunyai hulu yang dipanggil ayam teleng yang seakan-akan jauh demam, dan mempunyai sampir dan sarung yang agak lebar. Besinya mempunyai 3 lok dan mempunyai lurah. Besi ini dipanggil besi melela dan ia melambangkan keunikan Kris Semenanjung. Kris selalunya dibuat sarungnya melalui belahan kayu. Belahan kayu yang diketam rapi menjadi rata dan ditangkup untuk menjadi sarung. Dan sampirnya merupakan daripada sebongkah kayu yang ditebuk dan dibentuk sehingga menjadi bentuk-bentuk tertentu yang memaparkan imej Kris tersebut. Apa yang menarik minat saya dalam seni pembuatan Kris ini adalah ukiran dan bentuk yang tertentu yang memaparkan kebolehan dan kehandalan seseorang tukang Kris itu dalam seni pembuatan Kris tersebut.
For centuries, the spiritual and physical process of making a Kris has resulted in its unique beauty that has intrigued collectors and scholars the world over. The act of folding the different metals creates beautiful patterning in the blade, known as pamua. The pamua are unique, like fingerprints. Each patterning can never be repeated exactly. It is this that gives a Kris blade an almost human-like identity. And it is perhaps not surprising that a Kris has often been seen as having a living presence. But it is the final process of immersion of the blade in an acid solution for 3 days and nights that its identity and its unique patterns actually appear. The chemical reaction and corrosive acids reveal the areas of the many different metals forged, darkening some and lightening others. All this, however, does not necessarily ensure that a kris will become special.
Tapi nak cari keris tuah tu payah. Payah keris macam tu. Nak jatuh dia bila keris tuah ni jatuh dalam bintang bustari. Dalam bustari. Bustari saat ni dia ada 7. Sehari semalam 24 jam dia ada 7 kali dalam bustari. Tapi kita tak tahu semasa mana bustari.
Hamza has been collecting kris and assorted Old World Malay artefacts for many years. He's become something of an expert on the techniques used to identify quality specimens, as his assistant Zayed Zain explains.
The balancing of kris is just to show that the weapon is stable and made from good ingredient of iron. So at a certain point, the kris can stand by itself, by anybody, if you had a proper training by anybody. To forge the kris, you need a certain degree of temperature to forge a kris. So when the kris is well forged, you get a very balanced kris. So that's why you can, some kris easily can be stood up, some cannot. So it depends on the kris. Actually, it's, we just like to show that to the world that kris is among the stable weapon and the light weapon that Malay have.
Over the years, Pak Hamza has collected a variety of kris, ranging from the brutal to the sublime.
This one is we call as kinata karongan, because karongan is for this design. This one is not for fighting, kris. This one is for ceremony. This one is supposedly gift to from the Sultan of Mataram to his fighters that won the war. So eventually the kris is also just a plain kris, but the king of Mataram put it this symbol to appreciate his warriors for the winning of the war. Keris is known for the secondary weapon in the actual combat. The the main weapon is, you know, the spears, and they have the arrow. So they have the sword. That is the main weapon. So the keris is the secondary weapon. If you lose the main weapon, then you brought your keris.
In the past, a keris maker might have waited to finish his work under the special light of the full moon, a symbol of perfection to the traditional Malay. The eclipse of the moon is said to be a time of mixed blessings and uncertainty, and thus a blade Sunang Bonang, a Javanese mystic, who is said to have drawn a keris out of a snake's mouth. In a region of the world prone to eruptions, it is not surprising that one such story tells of a volcano giving birth to the first keris. Alternatively, our mixed sense of danger, fear, and fascination when confronted with a snake is another possible source of inspiration. The ancient Javanese assigned the first creation of the keris to their many legendary figures, such as Panji, the warrior king, or the ascetic object as the keris is. The defining moment of its birth is still something of a mystery. There are many theories as to the origin of its design. The meander or zigzag patterns found in nature could have inspired the classic wavy shape of the Keris.
Within the collection, the regalia or the Perak Sultanate, they believe that they are the inheritance of the Keris Ketameng Sari from Hang Tuah. Even though the legend of Hang Tuah itself mentioned that the Keris was lost somewhere in the sea or something like that anyway, but still there is a belief that this is been inherited by the Sultanate of Perak, because the Sultanate of Perak has a very direct link to the Sultanate.
But as profound a cultural